السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونؤمن به سبحانه وتعالى ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله العظيم من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ونبينا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقدوتنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهي شهادة أسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يجعلها لي ولكم وديعة عنده في خزائن حفظه لنلقاه بها يوم القيامة غير خزايا ولا مفتونين ولا مبدلين ولا مغيرين. As for what follows, beloved brothers and elders in Islam, sisters who may be watching this also, a couple years ago, 2009, we gave a class on the Islamic creed. Some close friends of mine had a class on the Islamic creed in West Philadelphia at Masjid al-Mujahideen on 16th Street. And in the course of the question and answer session of the class, at the end of it, I was also there in the crowd, and I was asked a couple questions were directed toward me, right? So I answered those, and some of those questions had to do with where the Salafis get their manhaj from. Brother had asked me about that. This is very famous in the Philadelphia, Camden area, New York and all that. Many people who saw me for the first time saw me on those videos actually. Where I said that actually a lot of the misconceptions that they have come from Ibn Taymiyyah. Okay? We don't beat around the bush for nobody. You know what I mean? We have to say how it is, because if we are dishonest, history will be rewritten. People won't know what actually happened in the past. If we bite our tongue and just, oh, everything is all good. No. Some things exist now in the hearts of the Muslims that were not there before certain people started saying things that were incorrect. And those have to be rectified. The scholars in Ibn Taymiyyah's time put him in prison. It wasn't like Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala who got in prison for standing up for the truth, or Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam who got put in jail because he wouldn't fornicate. That's not why. He got put in prison by the order of the scholars of his time, from all four of the madhabs. A qadi from each of the four madhabs made the verdict, made the judgment that he needs to be put in prison for things that he used to say that no one else would say, that would go against the ijma', that would go against the consensus of the Muslims. Why do we have ijma'? What is the purpose of having ijma'? The ijma' is we have the consensus so the Muslims can stay unified. So we can stay on an opinion. So it's not everybody say whatever they think and whatever comes in their mind, no matter how much knowledge they know. Because having knowledge alone, having knowledge is something nobody, not even myself, nobody can deny that from Ibn Taymiyyah, that he had knowledge. Nobody. The information he memorized, I cannot hope to memorize. So that's not the claim. The claim is not he was a dummy. If he was, I would say it. I don't care. I don't have a problem with that. But that wasn't. It wasn't about having knowledge or not having knowledge. It's about after the person has knowledge, what type of things do they say and do after that knowledge? He did some things after that knowledge that were beneficial. He said some things that were good. He wasn't no shaitan, like everything he did and said was evil. Even Fir'aun himself, it wasn't everything he said was bad. People are going to say truth and falsehood. I don't think it's possible for a person to say every time they open their mouth they only lie. They couldn't live on earth like that. People tell the truth, you know what I'm saying? And people may be dishonest. But the thing is about what is the dishonesty about? What is the misrepresentation about? What are the mistakes on? If those things are very damaging, detrimental, harmful, divisive to the Muslims need to know about that. Because it concerns us all. It concerns us all. things that Ibn Taymiyyah said, nobody said before him, and he would say the Salaf said this without any proof. And sometimes he would claim that this is the agreement of the Salaf and the Khalaf and the Fuqaha and the people of Tasawwuf and then he would make a statement from his own words, but when you would go back and check, you would see that none of them said that. And the statements that he claimed that they said it from, he misunderstood them statements, which led him to say that, to quote some of the companions, alayhim ridwanullah, with an incorrect understanding, that they were saying that the hellfire would end one day. Umar radiallahu anhu ain't say that. Umar didn't say the hellfire would end. And that can even be interpreted from what he said. All he was saying was that a day would come when no one would be left in there. What's understood by that, he didn't say it would end. There would come a time when nobody would be left in there. People understood from the people of Iman. Because Allah would take out of there whoever had Iman in his heart. And that agrees with the sound hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Not that the hellfire would end. When did he say that? He didn't say that. So what I'm saying is to say, brothers, is that, the purpose wasn't really to attack nobody. But when questions are asked, if you have knowledge, you are betraying. Why learn the knowledge if you're not going to speak up? You and another person who don't know are equal if you all both stay silent. Someone asks a question, the one who knows stays silent because, I don't know how people are going to take this. And the other person doesn't know. Well, then it's like they both didn't know because both of them stayed silent. The result was the same from both of them. So the Imam in this city, Camden, the Imam of Masjid Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab, whose name there's no need to say. Whoever doesn't know it, whoever knows his name knows his name. But the Imam of that masjid, he made some statements concerning myself. He called me a liar several times.
And now we will establish, Ikhwan, also, from that which shows the lie upon Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah regarding this matter. Because there was some generality that was mentioned by this kadhab when he did this talk. كل صاحب بدأ يكذب ولا يبال. Every person of desires lies and they don't care.
One time he called me shaitan marid, like a rebellious shaitan, in a refutation that he made against me.
This individual, Ikhwan, they lie upon Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, this kadhab al-wadda', this shaitan al-marid, ya Ikhwan. This evil devil, Ikhwan, he lies upon Shaykh al-Islam.
And I was patient. I held this in, you know what I'm saying? I didn't say anything about that immediately. Because I knew that the people that are around me trust what I say. They know that I'm not lying. The people that was in the room, that was in that masjid that night, they know what I'm saying. I'm not saying just to be saying it. Because they know the type of person I am. I don't have to, just say anything about Allah, say anything about scholars, say anything about people in the ummah without verifying. That's not me. But because those statements are still being referred to on the internet, and because some people are feeling like, Akhi, if you have a response, you really should say something about that, because some people who don't know may think that what he was saying was right. And some people were approaching some of my students in Philadelphia, quoting stuff that he said that was erroneous. So he's like, Ustad, say something. Just a few words, just to settle the whole debate clear out the air, make it clear for everybody, crystal clear. Okay? The first thing I want to discuss about the reply that he gave to me was that he mentioned a person named Hamad al-Ansari, who's also a Salafi. He mentioned Hamad ibn Ansari, who was a person who specialized in manuscripts from the libraries and such, from the Islamic libraries. He was saying that he has doubt about the inscription of the book Zaghl al-Ilm to Ibn Taymiyyah. That's the book I quoted from off the top of my head. When I was there, well, alhamdulillah, I checked later on the statement that I made there, and to have come off the top of my head with it, it was very accurate. What I said about Ibn Taymiyyah was just like it was in the book, and I didn't try to memorize it. It just happened like that. Okay? Zaghl al-Ilm, that book that al-Dhahabi, the student of Ibn Taymiyyah, wrote and mentioned some criticism of his teacher. Zaghl al-Ilm, there is no doubt amongst the scholars that al-Dhahabi wrote this book. This is not even a place of doubt, but he mentions Hamad al-Ansari was asked about the book, Zaghl al-Ilm, right? So what did he say about that? He had a statement about the book. هل كتاب زغل العلم من مؤلفات الحافظ الذهبي? Is the book زغل العلم from the writings of Al-Hafiz al-Dhahabi? فأجاب, so he answered, أنا في شك من نسبة هذا الكتاب إلى الحافظ الذهبي. I'm in doubt concerning the ascription of this book to Al-Hafiz al-Dhahabi. Why? What's the reason? Did it look like it was forged? Like does it look like somebody erased something and took it out and wrote over it? No. Look the reason why he gave. وذلك لأن فيه كلاما لا تصح نسبته للذهبي عندي. He said, why is that? Because it has some words in it that, in my opinion, as far as I'm concerned, Al-Dhahabi couldn't have said it. According to me, he said, Indi. To me, it cannot be validly attributed to Al-Dhahabi. This was his statement. And then he says, why? He says after this, he says, وَالَّذِينَ نَسَبُوهُ لِلذَّهَبِيِّ أَغْلَبُهُم يَفْرَحُونَ بِنِسْبَتِهِ إِلَى الذَّهَبِيِّ. And those who attribute it to Al-Dhahabi, most of them are happy to attribute it to Al-Dhahabi. وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّ فِيهِ, it says جَرْحٌ, it should be جَرْحًا. جَرْحًا لِشَيْخِ الإسلام. So I don't know if it's a typo, or I don't know if that's how he spoke it. He made a mistake in Arabic grammar. Okay, because لِأَنَّ, after it says فِيهِ, it should say جَرْحًا لِشَيْخِ الإسلام. Ibn Taymiyyah, الرجل الذي حمل أعباء العقيدة السلفية على كاهله. He says because the reason why these people are happy to have this book and attribute it to Al-Dhahabi is because it has some criticism to, he says, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, the man who carried the cloak of the Salafi Aqidah on his shoulders. But the thing is that this book being valid, being sound or not, has nothing to do with people being happy or upset or anything about it being attributed to Al-Dhahabi. That has nothing to do with if the book is sound or not. What does that have to do with anything? So what we really see is that because when people are happy, you want to discredit the book so y'all can be happy and say that he didn't say these words. You had a question, Afi? Al-Dhahabi. Al-Dhahabi, Shamsuddin Al-Dhahabi was a student of Ibn Taymiyyah. He was, I guess, after Ibn Qayyim, he was probably the most popular, famous, well-known student and made like the most books after Ibn Qayyim as far as the students of Ibn Taymiyyah go. So he says though that he mentions this, that people are happy to ascribe this book. So what? That doesn't have anything to do with if the book is sound or not, if he actually wrote the book or not. وأيضا الرسالة الملحقة بهذا الكتاب مشكوك في نسبتها إلى الحافظ الذهبي ولم ينسبها إليه إلا السخاوي ومعلوم أن السخاوي أشعري مقلد لأشياخه في مصر والله أعلم. He said, and also the letter that was put after Zaghl al-Ilm, which is basically a letter that Al-Imam al-Dhahabi wrote to Ibn Taymiyyah, where he was giving him nasiha and some strong words that only a person that's really close to somebody else could do. Like only a person, if somebody was someone's teacher or uncle or cousin or someone real close to them, father or son, could speak in these type of words. He spoke harshly, like straighten out, man, stop doing this. You know? But the point, even though many scholars say that book was, that letter was written to Ibn Taymiyyah by Al-Dhahabi, we're not going to dwell on it. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that letter because that letter, that letter was not something I even mentioned. I don't even mention that many times to people because I don't want anyone to doubt the letter being sound or not and thus doubt what I'm saying that was in the letter. Say, well, some people said that letter wasn't sound, he didn't write the letter of Ibn Taymiyyah, so what you said about Ibn Taymiyyah that Al-Dhahabi said, then how can that be right? So we're going to stick to the books everybody know, heard of, they've been published, they've been printed, there's no doubt about Al-Dhahabi writing them. So like I said, he said that this letter that came after the book is doubtful, that it can be attributed to Al-Dhahabi, and no one attributed this letter to him except As-Sakhawi, who was another great Hafiz scholar of Hadith. He says, and it's well known that As-Sakhawi is an Ash'ari who was a muqallid, a blind follower of his sheikhs in Egypt, of his teachers in Egypt. Now the first thing, what does him having being an Ash'ari, none of this have anything to do with Zaghl al-Ilm. The fact he's an Ash'ari or not has nothing to do with the answer to this person's question. But what it really is saying is that because the Ash'aris are happy with what Al-Dhahabi said about Ibn Taymiyyah in this book, we need to throw doubt on it being Al-Dhahabi's book. That's basically what it's saying. Because what a person's madhab in the aqidah is not that, are all outside factors, or all outside information when it comes to this book being sound or not. Then he said, Wallahu a'lam. So the thing I'm saying here is that, brothers, the statement that he made based on his own feelings or his own emotions about the contents of this book goes against what the ulama said. I know all of y'all heard of Al-Hafiz Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani, rahimahullah ta'ala. Who hasn't heard of him? Al-Imam Al-Hafiz Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani, rahmatullahi tabaraka wa ta'ala alayh. Let me, just for a couple seconds, explain who this man was. With the muhaddithin, the science of hadith has different tiers, different levels, right? The highest level a person can reach as a scholar of the hadith is Amir al-Mu'mineen fil hadith, to be the leader of the faithful in the science of hadith. Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, reached that level with Al-Imam al-Bukhari, Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Al-Imam al-Daraqutni. He was up on the highest level of a scholar of the hadith. His memory was impeccable. His judgment on the isnads was something else, was unique.
Can you repeat that again as far as, you say Amir al-Mu'mineen?
Amir al-Mu'mineen fil hadith, the leader of the faithful. That means like he's like the leader of the Muslims in that. And there are conditions for a person to be that learned. One of them is that the person, they have to have written something in the science of hadith that was so essential that hardly anyone could come after them and be proficient in their science without having to refer to their works. Their works were that serious in that science that any scientist that came later in that science had to depend on what they wrote and how they put it down. Al-Imam Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions, he talks about the fact that this is the book of Al-Dhahabi. One of the things that prove it is the fact that he mentioned the book in a book called Anba' al-Ghumr. And he mentioned a man in it that is called Baha'uddin al-Asqalani. Al-Hafiz al-Dhahabi mentioned him by Sidi Abdullah ibn Khalil. This is the same person. Okay? So he mentioned him, when he was writing this, he mentioned him in a couple places. Right? And he spoke highly of him in this book. Now, he has spoke highly of him in this book. So the thing is that him mentioning him twice and praising him in this book, Sidi Abdullah ibn Khalil, this is proof that Zaghl al-Ilm was the book that he was referring to, and that he said that Al-Dhahabi mentioned this scholar in, and he is mentioned in the book. He's mentioned in the book twice. And to the extent that he even mentioned him with Al-Imam al-Nawawi and al-Shirazi. He said, it's a long quote actually, that's why I'm not really reading, but he said, وَكَمَا كَانَ بِالْأَمْسِ الشَّيْخ مُحْيِ الدِّينِ صَاحِبِ الْمَنْهَاجِ. He was talking here about him. The point is that he spoke highly of him. He talked about him, he mentioned him, and he spoke highly of him. So the point that I'm making is that this book, Zaghl al-Ilm, was not even, the fact that Al-Dhahabi wrote it was not even a matter of doubt. This is not even something to throw doubt upon. It's not even something to mention in a doubtful way. But he threw doubt upon it as if maybe he didn't mention him. It may not actually be his book, when it actually is his book. Even trying to prove it actually kind of makes it seem as if it has to be proven when it really doesn't. Right? So this book, Zaghl al-Ilm, this is not me lying on the student of Ibn Taymiyyah saying that he said something about his sheikh that he didn't say. He said these things in this book that Huffaz of his time and later times quoted from. They ascribed this book to him. They said this is his book. In this book, Ibn Taymiyyah's student, Al-Dhahabi, he speaks highly of his teacher, then he criticizes him. He didn't just straight off start speaking a little bit. He mentions that I've never seen anyone like him. I've never seen, he mentioned good things about him first. Then he also criticized him. So this was like what a student would do. That I look up to him, I respect him, I honor him, I this. But he also did this, he said this and this and that, and these things happened to him, so beware of it. Because this book, Zaghl al-Ilm, was basically written to warn people from certain, traps and slips that people make when they have knowledge. In the different sciences, beware of this and this science, this and that science. If you have fiqh, beware of learning fiqh and doing this, beware. So he was basically giving a warning to people of knowledge who are learning students, beware of learning knowledge and this happening to you. And he mentioned his teacher, Ibn Taymiyyah. He mentioned him. Is it time to make the Maghrib? Still got how much time? 10 minutes?
We got enough for 5 minutes.
Okay. So the thing is that to throw doubt upon it, to make it seem as though this is not his book, that's only to belie me, to make it look like I'm a liar and what I said was wrong. And even when he made that quote, he called me a kadhab twice. When he quoted what Hamad al-Ansari said, he called me a liar. And a kadhab, that's like the worst kind of liar. Like there's a kadhib is a liar, but a kadhab, that form of the word means like a compulsive, like totally a liar.
And as for those who attribute it to the Dhahabi, like this kadhab,
I mean, why say all this? When you're going off the opinion of Hamad al-Ansari, when I'm going off the opinion of Al-Hafiz Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani rahimahullah, and Al-Hafiz As-Sakhawi rahimahullah. Not just a scholar of manuscripts, these are people who memorize books. These are people who wrote books. Huge books, volumes, huge books. Not just they specialize in manuscripts and look at books and stuff and they can recognize things. These are the Huffaz of their age, after which the Ummah hasn't seen people on this level of knowledge. And this is what they said, that this is Al-Dhahabi's book. And he mentioned people in this book that when we go through the manuscript, the one that they put in print, we see that those same individuals that Al-Hafiz Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that same person that he said he mentioned in there, we see him in that book. Not only that, Al-Imam As-Sakhawi rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned this same quotes in a book called Al-I'lanu bil-Tawbikh liman dhamma al-Tarikh. So that just seals the coffin. He mentioned these quotes in his book, Al-I'lanu bil-Tawbikh liman dhamma al-Tarikh. So inshallah ta'ala, this is just to show you that it's not just me saying that this is his book. Huffaz, two great Huffaz of the Ummah have said this. And inshallah, after the Salah, we're going to look and compare other things that he said that were erroneous concerning me, concerning this book. Inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Al-Hafiz al-Imam Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala, in his book in Ba'ul-Ghumr, he mentioned the Zaghl al-Ilm, and he said, وَقَدْ بَالَغَ الذَّهَبِيُّ فِي الثَّنَاءِ عَلَيْهِ فِي كِتَابِهِ بَيَانِ زَغْلِ الْعِلْمِ He said that Al-Imam al-Dhahabi spoke highly of the Imam that we mentioned, who was Baha'uddin al-Asqalani, referred to as Sidi Abdullah ibn Khalil. He said that he spoke highly about him in his book Zaghl al-Ilm and in other books. And the statement that he made is kind of lengthy, but what he said at the end of it, he said that فلو كنت ذا صنعة لكنت بخير تأكل من كسب يمينك وعرق جبينك وتزدري نفسك ولا تتكبر بالعلم. He was saying that if you have your own occupation or job, you would be okay eating from what you earn by your own hands and by the sweat of your brow, and you would not think of yourself, you would look down on yourself and not think of yourself to be high, and not be arrogant with your knowledge. ولو أو كنت ذا تجارة لكنت تشبه علماء السلف الذين ما أبصروا المدارس ولا سمعوا بالجهاد وهربوا لما للقضاء طلبوا. And he said that, or if you had your own business, you would resemble the ulama of the Salaf, rahimahumullah, the ones who never saw any schools and never heard about like being the part of any type of organizations or such like this. And they ran away from being judges when they were sought for that. So at the end of it, he mentioned scholars of the past who were like this, and he said, وَكَمَا تَرَى الْيَوْمِ Sidi Abdullah ibn Khalil. And like you see from the scholars today, that scholar that he mentioned, Sidi Abdullah ibn Khalil, as an example of a person living in that current time who was of that type that had pretty much given up the world and was working for himself, not using his knowledge for money and for worldly gain and such like this, but having his own job and such. And he praised him again a second time. وَنَحْمَدُ اللَّهَ فِي الْوَقْتِ أُنَاسٌ يَفْهَمُونَ هَذَا الشَّأْنِ وَيَعْتَنُونَ بِالْأَثَرِ. So he said that, and we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that at this time there are people who understand this science and they concern themselves with narration like Al-Mizzi. And again, he mentioned Ibn Taymiyyah, so this is a praise of Ibn Taymiyyah, and Al-Burzali and Ibn Sayyid al-Nas, and he mentioned some scholars. And then he mentioned among them Sidi Abdullah ibn Khalil. So these are the two instances in the book Zaghl al-Ilm. Al-Dhahabi mentions him, just like Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned, or he spoke in his book that Al-Dhahabi spoke highly of him and praised him. Okay, so there is no doubt, like we said, there is no doubt that Zaghl al-Ilm is the book of Al-Imam al-Dhahabi. Okay? When he used this quote of Hamad al-Ansari, the person I referred to, the Imam of Masjid Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab in Camden, he mentioned that he called me a kadhab twice. That not like this kadhab is saying and this and he, like as if to say that that book isn't really his book. There's doubt behind it, unlike what this kadhab is trying to confirm here. Okay? But these are the statements of Al-Dhahabi. And the thing is that Al-Dhahabi has two criticisms. Because I want to show you now who the liar is, who actually was lying and being dishonest. First lie I'm going to mention, actually it's not in this book, I'm going to get back to that book. First lie I'm going to mention is something that he said. When he, at the end of his talk, started to praise Ibn Taymiyyah, and he spoke highly of him. He spoke of him in very good words. He was basing that praise of Ibn Taymiyyah that he mentioned at the end of his talk on the tarjama, basically the biography that Al-Dhahabi gave about Ibn Taymiyyah in his book called Siyaru A'lam al-Nubala. But it's in a volume that got lost. It's in a volume that got lost and got recovered elsewhere. So in that biography, he spoke highly of his teacher Ibn Taymiyyah in different words. So at the end of this, he only mentioned the praise. He didn't even mention really, he mentioned very little of the criticism that Al-Dhahabi had for Ibn Taymiyyah. But one thing that he straight up lied in and was dishonest in is that he said that when Al-Dhahabi enumerated the flaws of Ibn Taymiyyah, all he mentioned was that Ibn Taymiyyah was harsh in speech and would get angry in debate and such like this.
Did Al-Dhahabi say something about his usul? Did he say something about his fundamental principles? About his aqidah? No, rather, Ikhwan, he said from his affair that he had a sharp tongue and sometimes he would be rough regarding his statements regarding the people.
But he said, but did he disagree with his usul? Did he disagree with his creed? Did he disagree with his principles? He said, no, he just said that, you know, he has a temper and he gets upset and stuff like this. The same page and the same biography, he says about him, he says, مَعَ أَنِّي مُخَالِفٌ لَهُ فِي مَسَائِلَ أَصْلِيَّةٍ وَفَرْعِيَّةٍ. He says, despite the fact that I disagree with Ibn Taymiyyah, I oppose Ibn Taymiyyah in issues of aqidah and issues of fiqh. He said his usul, this word usul, this is out of Sad land. That root word is asl. Usul is a plural of asl. He's saying masail asliyah. I disagree with him in issues pertaining to the creed, to the usul, to the fundamentals and principles of Islam. So it wasn't that, oh, I just totally had agreed with him and the only thing I had wrong with, the only fault I saw in him was that he'd get angry. No. He said even in the aqidah and in fiqh, I have different opinions than Ibn Taymiyyah used to uphold. Which is why when he referred to different stuff that Ibn Taymiyyah used to say, he mentioned them as being mistakes and errors of Ibn Taymiyyah. Now,
that's Al-Dhahabi, right?
That's Al-Dhahabi saying this. Right. But the thing is that when he mentioned the same words, he only mentioned the ta'dil. He only mentioned the praise of Ibn Taymiyyah, the praise of Dhahabi gave to Ibn Taymiyyah, and he omitted any kind of criticism, except what he wanted to put out there as being a criticism, that he has a temper. It's not just that. When a person has a temper, they're out of control. They may not be able to control their tongue, not be able to control their hands, but when they have a temper, when they get upset, that means that they were unable to control their emotions, which could be an indication of not being able to control other things. Because if you get really mad and you say something out of the ordinary, say something wrong, that means that your getting angry was your not being able to control your feelings and your emotions, and them making you do stuff based on feeling that would go against your sound mind. So that's something to be looked at. So like I said, that was an instance of dishonesty. That was an instance of dishonesty. He did disagree and differ with Ibn Taymiyyah in issues of creed and issues of the aqidah. And when he mentions the things that Ibn Taymiyyah said, he counts them from his sins. He counts those things that Ibn Taymiyyah went on by himself from being from his sins. And there is no way a person can ignore that. It's right on the same page. What he said was directly on the same page. He said about him, وَأَطْلَقَ عِبَارَاتٍ أحجم عنها الأولون والآخرون وهابوا وجسر هو عليها حتى قام عليه خلق من علماء مصر والشام قياما لا مزيد عليه. He said in his biography of Ibn Taymiyyah, it's been reprinted in a book called Turath Ibn Taymiyyah, basically like the legacy of Ibn Taymiyyah. Al-Dhahabi says that Ibn Taymiyyah said words, he used expressions that the people of the earlier and later times all refrained from using. He made statements, and mind you, Al-Dhahabi was a historian. Al-Dhahabi was a historian. So he's saying that Ibn Taymiyyah made statements that people before and later were all afraid to say or make these actual statements. Wahabu, and they were afraid. They were afraid of who? The people were afraid of Allah. They didn't make these statements. وَجَسَرَهُ عَلَيْهَا. But he himself was so bold to make these statements. You know, then he said, حَتَّى قَامَ عَلَيْهِ خَلْقٌ مِنْ عُلَمَاءِ مِصْرَ وَالشَّامِ. Until a huge group of scholars from Egypt and from Syria, from Sham, stood up against him to confront him. قِيَامًا لَا مَزِيدَ عَلَيْهِ. They stood up against him standing, and they stood in opposition of him in such a way that they couldn't have done more than they did. It was the utmost opposition that they gave him for the statements that he made. Okay? So, he also says in his book, Tazkiratul Huffaz, listen to the wording of this. Listen to the words that he uses. Alright, so we already saw now that Ibn Taymiyyah, right, he made some statements that the scholars confronted him about. He made statements the scholars confronted him about that what? No one else made before him or after him. He said, أَحْجَمَ عَنْهَا الْأَوَّلُونَ وَالْآخِرُونَ. He said the people from earlier later times all refrained. They held back from saying the stuff Ibn Taymiyyah said, but Ibn Taymiyyah spewed these things out, either verbally or in his books. Look what Al-Hafiz Al-Dhahabi says in his book called Tazkiratul Huffaz. He says, وَقَدْ انْفَرَدَ بِفَتَاوَى نِيلَ مِنْ عِرْضِهِ لِأَجْلِهَا. And Ibn Taymiyyah went alone with unique fatwas that because of making those judgments, he was under fire. His reputation was under attack because of the fatwas that he made, that only he made. Infirad means a person to go alone, go solitary by himself. He says, قَدْ انْفَرَدَ بِفَتَاوَى. He went alone by himself. Were certain fatwas that he made, that because of them, his reputation was under fire. Now look what he says. وَهِيَ مَغْمُورَةٌ فِي بَحْرِ عِلْمِهِ فَاللَّهُ تَعَالَى يُسَامِعُهُ وَيَرْضَى عَنْهُ. He said, but those mistakes are drenched in the ocean of his knowledge. So may Allah forgive him and be pleased with him. Notice what he said, may Allah forgive him. Why? Because these are the things he disagreed with. He disagreed with these statements. You see the tone that he's using here? He said these fatwas, so may Allah forgive him, and because of the knowledge he had, may Allah pardon him because of who he was and what he did and such like this. He didn't say, and because of those fatwas, he was a Shaykh al-Islam, that nobody else had the knowledge that he knew, and no one else beat him to these great opinions that only he had that were the best opinions.
You said that it brought him under fire with who?
With the scholars of his time. With the other ulama of Egypt and Sham. Sham is Syria, Jordan, up in that area.
Question I got. What's some of the statements that he made bring them up?
Oh yeah, we gonna bring them statements out. We gonna bring them statements out. I might ask y'all if y'all ever heard these statements before. Because even scholars many times they haven't heard these statements before. Much less a person would have to have been told about it. Because it's just, you like, what? How did... So, we'll bring them out. Shukr, that's an excellent question. We're going to bring those out, inshallah. So he says that, فَاللَّهُ تَعَالَى يُسَامِعُهُ وَيَرْضَى عَنْهُ. He says, so may Allah make musamaha of Ibn Taymiyyah. Notice these same opinions Ibn Taymiyyah only had. That for those opinions he called Ahl Sunnah, from the Ash'aris and Maturidis, he called them Jahmis. Jahm ibn Safwan was like one of the biggest deviants of the Ummah. He ascribed the greatest, I'm talking about the scholars, that if these same scholars was in another Ummah, that Prophet would be proud to have such scholars in his Ummah that preserved his Sunnah, memorized his words, preserved his book, and passed it on just as it came down to him. They would be proud to have scholars like that in their Ummah. But he described them as being Jahmis. He called them one time Makhanithul Mu'tazila. He called them the hermaphrodites of the Mu'tazila. He said that the Mu'tazila were the real men, and that the Ash'aris are the hermaphrodites of the Mu'tazila. They're the fake men. They're not even male or female. They're in the middle. I'm saying, who is he talking about? Who is he talking about? Al-Imam al-Qurtubi? He's a hermaphrodite? Al-Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, is he a hermaphrodite? Who are you talking about? You're talking about the Ash'ari because of a personal beef, a personal thing? Because he disagreed with you because you said something nobody else said before? So you're so angry, you're going to go overboard? And quote other people that had a problem with them and try to make your statement really their statement. So someone trying to say, why you said about them, said, oh, I didn't say that, I quoted somebody else who was saying that. But you put it in your books. If you you put this in your book and that's how you feel personally. You were looking for the worst thing anyone ever criticized them with that was totally wrong, and you put in that statement in your book and say, so-and-so said this about the Ash'aris, but you also saying it, because you quoting them. Why? This divides the ummah. The Ash'aris, the Maturidis, and the Hanbalis were one hand. One hand! Until people came and made the differences the biggest thing. We don't focus on differences between us, you know, between the Ash'aris and the Hanbalis. We don't agree on everything. But the focus on differences, why are we doing that? The only one that have a real difference with now is Ibn Taymiyyah and his teachings. Ibn Taymiyyah said such things nobody said before. That he went out of the Hanbalis with. He went out of the Ash'aris, out of the Maturidis. He was, like he said, قَدْ انْفَرَدَ بِفَتَاوَى. He went on his own with fatwas. On his own. Infirad means he went alone. No one else said it. أَعْجَمَ عَنْهَا الْأَوَّلُونَ وَالْآخِرُونَ. No one from the earlier and later people said the words that he said. But those same statements that only he said, the Salafis today are making it like this is what the Salaf said. Like this is true Islam and it's not. And the Salaf are going to grab them, Yawm al-Qiyamah, and ask for justice. You can't lie on a normal Muslim. How can you lie against the greatest Muslims of the Ummah? And say that they said, put words in their mouth. Say that they said things they didn't say. Say Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala believed the universe didn't have a beginning. When did he say that? All the Muslims believe Allah was alone and did he create the universe. You're going to put on one of the greatest shuyukh of Islam that he believed that things can go in the past that created, things that come into existence after non-existence can continue into the past, and in an eternal regression, they can just regress and regress and regress. You know what progress means, to go into the future. Things can regress into the past eternally with Allah. There's a throne before the throne, there's an earth before the earth, there's a creation before the creation with no beginning. That's stuff that the philosophers would say. This is stuff that the philosophers would say. Not the Imams of Islam, but you criticize the Imams of Islam. What are you trying to do? Why? Al-Dhahabi says why. He was looking for leadership. Look at this. Look at this. This is a quote. Now I started to say, when I started this part of it, after make salat, there were two criticisms, two words of criticism. Now mind you, Al-Dhahabi was Ibn Taymiyyah's student. No one can deny that. He was his student. He loved Ibn Taymiyyah. He stuck by him. But that did not prevent him as a historian from mentioning certain historical facts. He says, in the same book, Zaghl al-Ilm, and this can give you an idea what is going on. Why would you criticize the greatest scholars of Islam and speak highly of yourself and make your opinions the opinions of the Salaf when you have no proof that they said these things? He says, وَحْذَرِ التَّكَبُّرِ. This is on page 38 of Zaghl al-Ilm. I did not, that night that we made that video clip we put on YouTube, I didn't even mention this quote. This quote is the atomic bomb. This quote shows you what's really going on. I didn't even mention this one. I kind of went easy, but they still couldn't stomach it because they don't know anything else. They don't know any better. They don't read history. They only read what Albani wrote in, you know, these people. Ibn Baz and them. You know, so whatever Ibn Baz, you know, Uthaymeen and such, whatever they write in their books, this is what we know. Al-Fawzan, they can quote all day from Fawzan people, but what actually is in the history books, oh, they were just jealous of Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah was the man that just wanted to be who he was, so they were jealous. No, he said the scholars didn't stand up to him in Egypt and in Sham until he said things nobody else said. That's not jealousy. That means that if he wouldn't have said those things, he wouldn't have did nothing to him. They stood up to him because he made statements no one else said. Now we have to stop you. Because this is Islam. This is not my father's house. This is the deen of Allah. This is what the prophets left us with to protect with our life. You can't change this. You can't start putting your own thoughts and statements in this and think we're going to be silent. That Allah in His essence comes down to the first heaven. Himself fitting in the first heaven. You know how small this universe is? This universe is smaller than a speck of dust. It's big to us because we're this is how small we are. We're small. To Allah Ta'ala's power, this earth equals smaller than a grain of sand. Allah came in the first heaven. Are you sick? This is a speck of dust. Can you enter a speck of sand? Can you do that? And you're a human being, and the sand is a human being. How could a Lord of the worlds come into the creation? So this is what I'm saying. Statements like this that make the scholars like, should we kill him or should we just ask him to make tawbah? What should we really do about this man? This statement, I didn't even make this statement. This is another statement I said. It's in the Zaghul al-Ilm that I didn't mention it, and he sure enough didn't mention it. He didn't bring this one up. Al-Dhahabi says, وَاحْذَرِ التَّكَبُّرْ وَالْعُجْبَ بِعِلْمِكَ. Beware of arrogance and being basically enamored with yourself, being self-conceited with your knowledge. وَاحْذَرِ التَّكَبُّرْ. Beware of arrogance. Takabbur comes from the root word kaf, ba, ra. Like Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest. Takabbur means that a person makes their self great, or they think or they deem themselves to be great, to be Akbar. Wahdhar takabbur, beware of arrogance. Wal ujba bi amalik, and being self-conceited with your knowledge. Oh, afwan. I said bi ilmik the first time. I apologize. Bi amalik. Yeah, this is the right way. وَالْعُجْبَ بِعَمَلِكَ. Beware of arrogance and being conceited due to your actions. Due to your actions. Barakallahu feek. So he says after this, فَيَا سَعَادَتَكَ إِنَّ جَوْتَ مِنْهُ كَفَافًا لَا عَلَيْكَ وَلَا لَكَ. Because, oh, what a triumph and success you will have if Allah saves you on the Day of Judgment with no sins against you and no good deeds in your account. Meaning that if you just get by, if you just slide through the Jannah, you are successful. For wallahi, listen to this, he swears by Allah on what's about to come, on the following, he swears by Allah.
Can you repeat, before you go and say that, can you repeat the last thing you said?
Yes. فَيَا سَعَادَتَكَ إِنَّ جَوْتَ مِنْهُ كَفَافًا لَا عَلَيْكَ وَلَا لَكَ. He said, so oh, what a success you would have if you were only saved, if you only got salvation just to get through to Jannah. Even. Barakallahu feek, jazakallah khair. Even, just to break even. The Day of Judgment. Just to break even. No, nothing against you, nothing for you. Just Allah's mercy. Allah let you go to paradise and just have mercy on you. He says, for wallahi, because by Allah. Why did he make this warning about kibr? He talked about ujub and kibr. He talked about self-conceit, right? And he talked about arrogance. So he says, for wallahi, because by Allah, ما رمقت عيني أوسع علما ولا أقوى ذكاء من رجل يقال له ابن تيمية. Because by Allah, my eyes had never seen a person who had more vast knowledge and who had a stronger intellect than a man called Ibn Taymiyyah. Like we said, this is ilm, this is knowledge. This is not something anyone denies for Ibn Taymiyyah. No one that I know. I don't know anybody, I haven't come across anybody, whether they're a critic of Ibn Taymiyyah, whether they love Ibn Taymiyyah to death. I've never heard nobody say he didn't have knowledge, or he didn't memorize, he didn't learn. He paid his dues as far as knowledge is concerned. But mind you, can anyone tell me the first person who's going to go to hellfire on the last day?
What is it? A knowledgeable scholar.
A knowledgeable scholar. The knowledgeable scholar. So what that tell you then? If a person can have a lot of knowledge and still be in trouble. Yeah. Knowledge by itself, by his virtue of knowledge, Allah didn't save him on the last day. Just knowledge, that wasn't enough. Not only that, many scholars say that the shaitan is very knowledgeable, extremely knowledgeable. He has a lot of knowledge. But the shaitan's knowledge definitely won't save him.
How is shaitan having more knowledge than a human being?
I didn't say he has more knowledge than a human being, but just that scholars say he has knowledge. But the thing is that if you look at the fact that Iblis was existing before human beings, he was a creation that his existence preceded the first human being, our father Adam alayhi salam. So because he came earlier, you know what I'm saying? Because of that reason, it's very likely that he was exposed to more, he saw more, he had knowledge of more. But this is a digression. The point I'm trying to make only is just that a person's knowledge alone, by virtue of knowledge alone, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be saved. Al-Dhahabi a couple of times said the mistakes he made are drenched in the ocean of his knowledge, so may Allah pardon him, may Allah forgive him, be pleased with him. But that's not something that we know. That's the knowledge of the unseen. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? A person may make dua for him and pray for him, but they can't say, they can't guarantee that, well, because he had all this knowledge, his mistakes are pardonable. When those mistakes he made were not between him and Allah, those mistakes were between him and the whole ummah and Allah. A person, a scholar may do a sin in secret and private or whatever, between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you put things in books that people are going to read later and misunderstand, or they'll understand you right, but they're your misunderstandings, and that's going to cause the ummah to divide. That's going to cause the Muslims to divide. And some Muslims are going to have the same arrogance he's talking about, thinking that they're better than everybody else. To the extent that Al-Fawzan, and I had this on my wall, on my webpage on Facebook, I had a recording of Fawzan, which is one of their great shuyukh, one of the people they look up to, that he was asked about calling himself a Salafi. Mind you, Muhammad Nasiruddin Al-Albani made a fatwa at one point that you gotta call yourself, you have to say that you are a Salafi. You gotta call yourself a Salafi. This is what he was saying, which is why a lot of people to this day have so-and-so as Salafi. Fulana as Salafiyah, so-and-so woman as Salafiyah. Be based on the fatwa that Al-Albani gave about to separate yourself from the innovators, you gotta call yourself Salafi. Al-Fawzan asked recently, somebody asked him recently, and they recorded this, and they put this on YouTube for everybody to see this, that he was asked about a person calling himself a Salafi.
بالسلفية أو بفلان السلفي أو الأثري أو نحو ذلك من الألفاظ.
هذا تزكية للنفس. الإنسان يحرص على اتباع السلف والاقتداء بهم ولا يسمي نفسه سلفيا لأن فيه تزكية، وأيضا هذا فيه اتهام الآخرين بأنهم ليسوا سلفيين. فيترك هذا الأمر الذي يثير الناس ويسبب أن الإخوان يحصل بينهم سوء تفاهم، ما هي سلفي إلا أنت، ما يجب ترك هذه الأمور.
And he said that this has a type of tazkiyah for a person, meaning that a person is basically praising their self. They're basically, it's a self-praise to use that kind of statement to say you're a Salafi. I mean, we've been saying this for the longest. Alhamdulillah, that's someone that they look up to, that they listen to. I hope, because there's so many different kinds of Salafis. That's another thing we got to talk about, how the Salafis not only split up from the Ummah, they split up amongst each other so many times. That one week, Sheikh so-and-so's ordered, now he's off it. Get rid of his tapes, his videos, his whatever he has, any books he made, throw them in the trash, burn them. Okay, now he made Tawbah, he's back on it again. Dude, I just burned all this stuff. I could have kept it. Like next time, could I put it in a vault so in case he make Tawbah, I can get it back out and get a benefit? He just like put it on hold. Don't burn his book, throw away his books. Just, you know, put them in a safe and lock the joint. If you make Tawbah, you can get it back out. So I'm saying that even in their own group, they all different. There's a political Salafis that get into jihad and, you know, they say they should blow themselves up and stuff. Then there's other Salafis that say, no, we should listen to the kings and see what the ruler says. And then there's other Salafis that's focused on knowledge. Another Salafis is focused. So it's like, what Salafi, you say become a Salafi, what Salafi should I join? Y'all not one group. Y'all don't listen to one person. Many people will say that they are Salafi, they put them off the manhaj.
He said he quotes from Sheikh bin Baz, Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen, Shaykh Al-Albani. Is that a proof that a person is Salafi or Sunni, brothers? Huh? You know anybody that's not Salafi or Sunni that quotes from Shaykh bin Baz? No, anybody, not a group. Anybody, name a person that quotes from Shaykh bin Baz and praises Shaykh bin Baz, but he's not Sunni. He said Omar al-Ashqar. You brothers know who Omar al-Ashqar is? No. Okay, we leave that on the side. It's not a big thing. If you don't know who Shaykh Omar al-Ashqar, and I say Shaykh because that's what he is. He's an alim. There's no doubt that Shaykh Omar al-Ashqar is an alim. Anybody else? Any personality that we know of that quotes and praises Sheikh bin Baz? Huh? I thought you said Abdul Aziz is Abdul Aziz in the back. That's what he said. I thought he was trying to say Abdul Aziz is one of those people that's, I said, not our Abdul Aziz. No. Huh? Majdi Warda. Did he leave Philadelphia yet? Oh, Allah Musta'an. Majdi Warda. Majdi Warda, I think he's still here in Philadelphia. He studied with Shaykh Abdurrazak al-Lafifi. Like 16 years. He was there with Shaykh bin Baz. He's always quoting them. Quoting Shaykh bin Baz, Shaykh al-Uthaymin, Shaykh al-Albani. Do we know him to be Sunni? Salafi? But he claims it though, doesn't he? He claims Salafiyya. Anybody else? No. We don't take Muhammad Jabali out of Salafiyya. Or I don't take Muhammad Jabali out of Salafiyya. I haven't done that. Maybe some of the other brothers do that, but I haven't reached that point yet. Abdurrahman Abdul Khaliq. He's always quoting Sheikh bin Baz. He's a student of Sheikh al-Albani. But he's not Sunni. Anybody else? Abu Hassan al-Ma'rabi. Some of these names you brothers don't know, right? Anybody else? We don't say that he's not Salafi. No, you always, I know that, just like Allah Khairan. You always want to be clear now. Jamal Zorbozo. Nah, that's a nice one, because that's right here in America. Nah. We consider him Sunni? Salafi? Huh, brothers? Come on. The topic was the importance of staying away from the people of innovation. Come on. Or you just thought I was just going to talk, right? And that was it, right? That was it. Come on. Or maybe because many of us here are new and we don't know these personalities. We never heard of these names. We can give that to you. But the old heads sitting here, they should be saying something. Anybody else? Bilal Phillips. We consider him upon the Sunnah, the way of the Salaf, do we? Yes or no? Huh? Don't be afraid. I won't look in your cell phone and your BlackBerry see if you got his number in there. Don't be afraid. Ali Tamimi. Allahu Akbar. Anybody else? Idris Palmer. But we say Ali Tamimi, you got to say Idris Palmer. It's the same thing. It's like Abbott and Costello. Now. Huh? Muhammad Adli. Muhammad Adli. Ibn Jabreen. We're not going to talk about Ibn Jabreen. Inshallah. Shaykh Abdullah Ibn Jabreen. Because there's some statements that have been made by the ulama. Naam. Anybody else? I'm not going to say that Abu Osama is not Salafi. But I will say that Abu Osama, he has some real serious, major, super duper, humongous problems. Abdul Hakim Quick? There's another one. Naam, in the back. There's another one. But you won't hear Anwar Abdul Muhammad quoting Sheikh bin Baz. He doesn't love those people like that. You won't hear them quoting. He may once in a while, maybe because of some affinity that happened to him as a younger man, but maybe, you know. Now, Abdul Aziz, raise your hand up. Abu Muslima. Definitely.
So-and-so says they're Salafi, but are they Salafi? No, they're off the manhaj. So-and-so says that he thinks he's a Salafi. He's off the manhaj. So this means that even in your own group, even if you try to unify the ummah by joining you, they're joining division. The ummah, if they join you, they have joined division. We're more unified staying outside of you and keeping the number of groups we already have in the ummah at that number. Because if we join you, we definitely going to make more groups. Because that's what y'all do.
Because when you're a Sunni, if you're a Sunni, you're a flower. You're a rose. You're a tulip. If you go sit amongst those weeds, you're going to beautify them. That's what's going to happen. So you stay far away from them. Because it's important to stay away from the people of innovation, but it's also important to stay away from innovations.
Sorry, Chief. What they call non-Salafi? So what are the rank they call the non-Salafi?
They may use all kind of names, Akhi. I've heard different names. I've heard Deviant, I've heard Qutbi, I've heard all kind of stuff. Allahu Alam. I don't know what words they'll use, but the thing is just that this name calling, why? Why we call each other names? The people that call themselves a name besides themselves, outside of them, usually only call themselves that name because this is their teacher. You know what I'm saying? Like they may say I'm a Shafi'i, they may say I'm an Ash'ari, but they don't go around, we are the Ash'aris, we are the Haq. They just say that, no, in this science, I study from the students of this Shaykh. The students, the disciples of this Shaykh, they're my teachers, I look up to them. But it's not like this is our slogan and this is our label and we have to take this to the ends of the earth. No, it's not like that. This is just to identify schools. This person comes from this school, this person comes from, and when you know who Ahl Sunnah are, you respect all of them. You don't got to be a Hanafi to respect the Hanafis. You don't got to be a Hanbali. You respect all the imams and you respect their students. But like I said, when people come and based on their own, whatever, their ego, whatever it is, and they throw that into the mix, it spoils things, it messes things up. Let me read to y'all, because I didn't get to this statement. وَحْذَرِ التَّكَبُّرِ, beware of arrogance, وَالْعُجْبَ بِعَمَلِكَ, and being impressed, being conceited with your actions. فَيَا سَعَادَتَكَ إِنَّ جَوْتَ مِنْهُ كَفَافًا لَا عَلَيْكَ وَلَا لَكَ. We're still on page number 38. Because, oh, what a success it would be if you can break even, not against you and not for you. فَوَاللَّهِ مَا رَمَقَتْ عَيْنِي أَوْسَعَ عِلْمًا وَلَا أَقْوَى ذَكَاءً مِنْ رَجُلٍ يُقَالُ لَهُ Ibn Taymiyyah. Because by Allah, my eyes had never seen anyone who had more vast knowledge. And we spoke about that knowledge, right? We don't deny the knowledge, but we say that the knowledge by itself is not enough. Okay? وَلَا أَقْوَى ذَكَاءً, or a person who had more stronger intellect. من رجل يقول له ابن تيمية, than a man who was called Ibn Taymiyyah. مع الزهد في المأكل والملبس والنساء, while at the same time he was an ascetic. He used to abstain and not have the value and not have the value in his heart for the dunya. When it comes to clothing, when it comes to eating and clothing and women getting married. So he wasn't a person that was into these types of things. وَمَعَ الْقِيَامِ فِي الْحَقِّ وَالْجِهَادِ بِكُلِّ مُمْكِنٍ, and while standing up for the truth and making jihad, making effort and sacrifice in whatever way he could. And he says after this, he says, وَقَدْ تَعِبْتُ فِي وَزْنِهِ وَفَتْشِهِ حَتَّى مَلَلْتُ فِي سِنِينَ مُتَطَاوِلًا. He said, and I, over the years, have become tired of weighing him and evaluating him over the long years. Look what his end synopsis is of his teacher. فَمَا وَجَدْتُ قَدْ أَخَّرَهُ بَيْنَ أَهْلِ مِصْرَ وَالشَّامِ. So what I saw to be the reason that put him back, that made him, didn't put him in the front, but put him in the back and made him a person of contempt to the people of Egypt and Sham, Syria. So remember what he mentioned though, the scholars of Egypt and Sham stood up against Ibn Taymiyyah when he said things that he said. He said, what I saw put Ibn Taymiyyah back, what was holding him back was the following. فَمَا وَجَدْتُ قَدْ أَخَّرَهُ بَيْنَ أَهْلِ مِصْرَ وَالشَّامِ وَمَقَتَتْهُ نُفُوسُهُمْ وَازْدَرُوا بِهِ وَكَذَّبُوهُ وَكَفَّرُوهُ إِلَّا الْكِبْرُ وَالْعُجْبُ. He said that what I saw to be holding Ibn Taymiyyah back to the scholars of Egypt and Syria, and what made their souls dislike him, and what made them put him down and criticize him, and call him a liar, and even a kafir, a disbeliever, was only due to arrogance and self-conceit. Arrogance, al-kibr wal-ujub, arrogance and self-conceit. وَفَرَطَ الْغَرَامِ فِي رِيَاسَةِ الْمَشْيَخَةِ, and having a strong desire to be the lead sheikh. This is what I said about why are we doing all this? Why are we putting everybody down, putting oneself up? My opinion is right and everyone else is wrong, no matter how. They were the sheikh of the Hanbala, they were the sheikh of the Hanabila in their time, maybe, but they didn't understand like I do. They had some misunderstanding. I know what I'm talking about. What is this all about? Riyasat al-Mashyakha, being the lead sheikh, the head sheikh. وَالْإِزْدِرَاءِ بِالْكِبَارِ, and putting the high, noble people, the scholars and such, putting them down. This was the result of this. The arrogance and self-conceit was that he wanted, to be the leader at the expense of putting other people, other great shuyukh who were like mountains, trying to deride them, trying to devalue them, trying to bring them down, bring myself up. And we say, may Allah protect all of us from that. May Allah save all of us from that and from the effects of that. فانظر كيف وبال الدعاوي ومحبة الظهور. نسأل الله تعالى المسامحة. He says, so look at what the end result of these empty claims were and wanting to be famous was. May Allah be exalted, give forgiveness. May Allah forgive Ibn Taymiyyah for this, what he's saying basically. فَقَدْ قَامَ عَلَيْهِ أُنَاسٌ لَيْسُوا بِأَوْرَعَ مِنْهُ وَلَا أَعْلَمَ مِنْهُ وَلَا أَزْهَدَ مِنْهُ. He said because people stood up to confront him who were no more, they were not more detached from the world than he was. Nor were they more knowledgeable than him. Nor were they more, let's say they were not more cautious of displeasing Allah than he was. Wara' means to leave things that may be lawful out of fear for getting something that's unlawful. Like if you had 100 things, you may leave 99 of those things because one of them may have something unlawful in it. So you leave the whole 100%, you leave all of it. Because 1% of it has some doubt, that's wara', that's being careful. So he had this quality. He said the shuyukh who put him in jail, that stood up to him and confronted him, they didn't have this quality more than he did, nor were they more knowledgeable than him, nor were they more detached from the dunya than he was. And Allahu alam about all that. Because when a person is impressed by somebody, they may see them as being greater than they actually are. And Allah's alam knows best. But the point is, this is how he saw it. This is how he felt. You know what I'm saying? He said, بَلْ يَتَجَاوَزُونَ عَنْ ذُنُوبِ أَصْحَابِهِمْ وَآثَامِ أَصْدِقَائِهِمْ. He said, nay, rather, they would pardon and forgive the sins of their companions and the faults and the slips of their friends. وَمَا سَلَّطَهُمُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ بِتَقْوَاهُمْ وَجَلَالَتِهِمْ بَلْ بِذُنُوبِهِ. He said, and Allah Ta'ala did not have them to do what they did to Ibn Taymiyyah. Basically, Allah didn't have them attack Ibn Taymiyyah because of their taqwa and because of their sublimeness and greatness, but because of his sins. This is why he was afflicted with the scholars that stood up to him. He's saying that it wasn't because of they were such great people, but because of stuff that he said wrong, things he did wrong. That's why he stood up to him. That's why this happened to him. Then he says, وَمَا دَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ عَنْهُ وَمَا دَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ عَنْهُ وَعَنْ أَتْبَاعِهِ أَكْثَرُ. He says, and what Allah Ta'ala protected Ibn Taymiyyah and his followers from was even bigger than what befell them. وَمَا جَرَى عَلَيْهِمْ إِلَّا بَعْضُ مَا يَسْتَحِقُّونَ فَلَا تَكُنْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّنْ ذَلِكَ. And nothing happened to them except some of what they deserved. So do not be in doubt concerning that. Now, we'll stop and pause here. Are these the words of somebody who agreed with everything Ibn Taymiyyah was saying? Could these possibly be the words of, when he's calling, this happened to him because of his sins. When he's saying that Ibn Taymiyyah had opinions that were uniquely his, that were only his opinions, the people from earlier times, later times did not say these things. He said them only by himself. So may Allah forgive him and be pleased with him, because I've never seen a scholar like him before and he was so great. What's that tell you? I don't think he was correct in all the opinions he had. Even though I may agree with him in some of them, but I definitely don't agree with all of them. He said himself that I disagree with him in issues of creed and issues of fiqh. Principles and sub-principles. I disagree with him in both. So he's saying that I don't think he's ma'soom. I don't think that he's above error. I don't think that he's infallible. I know that he can make mistakes. And I believe him going away from the ummah with his own opinions was part of his mistakes. And this is all we're saying. This is why we agreed with Al-Dhahabi on this. About him being the greatest Shaykh or something. We don't agree with him with all that. The greatest Shaykh al-Islam and this. Okay, he can feel that he's entitled to feel however he wants to feel. Okay? But the point of discussion between us and Salafis is Ibn Taymiyyah had opinions that were different than everyone else. Many Salafis deny that. They say, no, he said nothing about what the Salaf said. He didn't say anything that went out of what anyone before him said. He said verbatim what the predecessor said. Al-Dhahabi is saying that, no. He said things no one else would say. Okay? That's the first disagreement Al-Dhahabi agrees with us on, not with them. Secondly, the things that he did go by himself on, was he right or wrong? Al-Dhahabi says, I disagree with him. We said we disagree with him too. So why they all say that we only agree with him? The stuff that he said wrong, if you was to ask a Salafi, sit down right now, can you ask me a question? Maybe one of y'all can do this. Y'all have time? Y'all some Salafi friends? Alone one time, maybe, I don't know, eating some food or something? Just ask him one time. Akhi, do you know of any mistakes Ibn Taymiyyah ever made? If he's not really feel like astaghfirullah, if he don't do that, I doubt if he'll tell you any mistakes that he knows of that his teachers taught him, Ibn Taymiyyah made. Beware of that, but take the rest of his stuff. Accept the other things from him, but you know, he made a mistake in this and this and that, but you can take everything up. It's not like that with them. They may say we believe, we don't say he's infallible, we don't say he never made mistakes, but if you ask them what mistakes did he make, there's total silence. They don't know what mistakes he made. Because they don't want to admit that what the other scholars of his time say were mistakes, they don't want to admit that those were mistakes. Because that would be to admit that the majority was right and that he was wrong, and they don't want to say that. Because their whole methodology is based on this one man. It's based on this one man. So if he's wrong, we're all wrong. So he got to be right, and the rest of the ummah has to be wrong. This is why when the ulama of South Africa, the Majlis al-Ulama, the Assembly of Scholars in South Africa, when they made that book called The Deviation of the Salafis, this is the tone what they were saying, that they are taking from just one man, Ibn Taymiyyah. They could be more honest about it and stop saying they take it from the Salaf and just admit they just take it from Ibn Taymiyyah, but they don't want to do that. They want to attribute everything that they say the Salaf is saying is from Ibn Taymiyyah's words. So this is what he said. He attributed this to Ibn Taymiyyah's sins. What befell him? What befell him? People call him kafir. People call him a kadhab. People say he's a liar. They said he made kufr. They said all of these things that they said. Why did Al-Dhahabi say? Because of his sins. Not because of their righteousness or because they were more learned than him, but because of his sins. What were some of those sins he mentioned right here? He mentioned arrogance and self-conceit. And looking for the leadership of the scholars, of the Muslims. To be the biggest scholar. These are some of those sins and some of the mistakes he mentioned here. He didn't go into detail, mention like the actual things in the Aqidah and fiqh he disagreed with Ibn Taymiyyah about, but he's saying that, I know he's not ma'asum, I disagree with him in principal issues and sub-principles. With issues of the heart and issues of the body. Issues of creed and issues of action.